All right, everyone, welcome back to the Investor Shed podcast. My name is Jeremy Kitchen here with my lovely co-host, Nicholas Beveridge, and we have a special guest in the studio today, Bethany LaFlam. How are you today?
I'm so great. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course.
Of course. Yeah, good morning. Thank you for being here. For those that don't know who Bethany is, how about we don't try to describe her, and you let us know what is it that you do on a day-to-day basis, and then we'll get into what your plans are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, so my passion is helping people create conscious wealth. And then I say that, people are like, okay, well, what does that mean? That sounds lovely. I'm a securities lawyer. So what I tell people is I help them practice safe sec. And that is but only when they're ready and with someone they trust. And if they are not quite ready to engage in sec, then I can help them effectively abstain from accidentally engaging in sec. And that just means selling securities when you're raising money from other people.
And it really hit home for me when I first heard you talk about this, because I realized that I was doing things so backwards and raising money. And if the SEC found out, I'm sure they wouldn't be happy with me, because I did have passive investors on projects that weren't doing anything, and I was just taking their money. I guess maybe I won't get too deep into it because I can still be held liable, but but it was important to hear that there are other, you got to get your passive investors, if you're investing in real estate, somewhat actively involved for the most part, right?
If you want to be a joint venture, then they have to all be actual partners and be actively involved. And I'll tell you, every time I speak to a group, I look out and see the panic on people's faces when I describe what a security is.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, I've probably been doing that." So you're a good company.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of times, though, I'm not sure. I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this, but Nick raises capital from his inner sphere. He's not posting on social media like, "Hey, give me your money." These are people that are actively coming to him and saying I want to invest in your deal. And I think there's a lot of differences between that, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
There are a few differences. Still a security, so you still have to comply. But it is because you're not advertising or generally soliciting, you can accept up to 35 non-accredited investors. So people that are under $1 million in net worth, or people who don't make $200,000 a year. So you're allowed to do that when you're not advertising, and it's 506B is what it's called.
Yep, gotcha. Before we dive into the minutia of all this stuff, can we go back a little bit and find out where you came from and what got you interested in this kind of career?
I wasn't. So I started practicing law because I grew up poor and didn't want to be a doctor. And those were my options. You'd be a doctor or you're a lawyer. And I started off pre-med and was like, this is horrible. So I switched and went to law school.
Gotcha. What was horrible about it?
Med school?
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to do the whole cadaver thing, pre-med actually. I did biochem, sort of advanced biochem. It was this is not my jam, right?
Cutting out dead bodies and stuff.
Yeah, I'd rather interact with live people. And well, you know what? This is going to date me because I'm older than you guys. I went to college right around the time Silence of the Lambs came out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you are super old.
I wanted to be Clarice. But then I realized I don't have a lot of tolerance for that level of crazy.
Yeah, I totally get that.
So then I go into law and real estate, and there's a certain level of crazy that I still deal with, I guess, but
not as many bodies.
Slightly fewer. Yeah.
not zero, but
number's never zero. Let's be honest here. No matter what you're doing, it's reduced but never zero.
That's right. So I headed off to law school. I didn't apply anywhere in Ohio. That's where I grew up. It was sort of like my ticket out of Ohio. It didn't occur to me when I was a kid that you could just leave a place for no reason. Because you wanted to. I was like, I got into school, I gotta go. So I moved across the country by myself and went to Pepperdine Law School. And when I got it, I thought I wanted to be a famous trial lawyer, like you see on TV. And I was a trial lawyer for a little while. The hours suck. It's always a battle. Bodies, right?
Right.
And the people weren't happy to talk to me because we're fighting, right? Yeah. And I left that because I was killing myself working, 2,200 hours for 2 years in a row.
Wow.
It's more than 40 hours a week billing,
right?
On top of driving. Anyway, it sucked. So I left that, started my own firm, and I was doing transactions where I was helping people build businesses, and I was like, this is cool. I like this. fast forward a few years later, I'm working with all the tech bros and in venture and operating companies, which is exciting. But those kinds of clients tend to treat their lawyers like the help.
Sure.
And it's not a lot of strategy. It's draft this, due diligence on that. I don't give me your ideas. I don't want to hear it.
Right.
And I felt like I was leaving a lot on the table there. So I left the practice of law altogether, and I went to start a brilliant, complicated fund that failed miserably.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that.
We could talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, a lot of people are scared of, honestly, and we've talked to other people before about being scared of failure and being scared to fail at a new thing. I think it's brilliant to fail at a new thing because it gives you that much more knowledge going into the next thing that, like, oh, this failed because X. Let's talk about the thing that failed, though, if you don't mind. Like, what failed about that business?
So I went out and I was like, I had this big vision of building a $50 million fund, which is a reasonable size, but maybe not for your first time ever raising money. Ever.
Sure.
And I wasn't in real estate at the time. I was doing the tech stuff, and I'd seen a whole bunch of deals, and I'd helped people be compliant in raising a whole lot of money, but I hadn't done it myself. And so my biggest mistake was not that I tried to do it; it was that I tried to do it without the right help, without the right OPs, other people.
Yeah.
So I went out there. I had this sort of ragtag team, and they could have said the same about me, by the way, And we tried to do this thing, and it never got off the ground. Luckily, I didn't raise $50 million and then lose it. I just didn't raise $50 million. Right. It was legally sound. It was brilliantly complicated, and I could not explain it efficiently to investors.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Hey, do you mind if we go back one more time? I apologize, but there might be some people out there just wondering, because I'm one of those. How did you mentioned you grew up poor, and then bam, you're in these high-end colleges. How'd you pull that off? Like,
I'm still paying student debt.
Okay. Oh, so you just got into debt.
Yeah.
Okay, which is easy enough to do in this country.
And I had a scholarship, and still, Pepperdine is not cheap. You're right. Did you just look it up? It's like $1 bazillion a year.
No, I didn't look it up, but it just sounds not like the Dollar Tree of colleges.
No, it is not. It is not, and it's still not Ivy League too. So it's like you get the huge price tag and then not the big swagger.
Right.
So it was a brilliant move on my part.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I enjoyed my time there. I mean, if you've been to Pepperdine, it's like in Malibu overlooking the ocean. It doesn't stop there.
Gotcha. So you used other people's money, basically debt, to get into college, to
whole
launch
bunch
you.
of my money, because you know how those things compound. It's a brilliant model, actually.
Oh yeah.
You're not a student.
Okay. Sorry to distract from that. We can go back, but
fine.
I'm just curious if some people are just some people are younger listening to this stuff and they just don't understand, like, well, how do you even afford something like that, or how could I get a career like that if I can't even afford college? Debt is the answer.
Debt is the answer.
Crippling debt. Yeah.
Long-term commitments.
That's actually a really good point, though, because I do like to talk about this with people. Of you can get out of a situation, out of poverty, without having money. I didn't have anybody give me money.
Yeah.
Well, I did loans, and
right.
I paid for it. But I didn't grow up with the mindset, because I didn't grow up around people who understood wealth. In fact, it was sort of like the rich people.
Yeah.
They're all assholes, And I was like, why? They look a lot happier than us. I'm not sure. I feel like I want to just go visit for a little while.
Yeah.
So you have to shift your mindset, and I really believe, I 100% believe that there are only 3 elements to creating wealth: education, access to opportunities, and mindset. And if you have the right mindset, the first 2 will fall in your lap.
That's a good point.
I love that.
You might not have the same starting point as someone else. Someone else might have started way further ahead than me, who had a trust fund or whatever. It's not always fair,
right?
But you can still do it if you work hard.
Yeah. No, mindset is definitely key for a lot of this stuff. I mean, like, we talk about it all the time on this podcast. Like, I've only been actively involved in real estate for like the last 2 or 3 years. Nick's actually the one that got me into this thing by doing a partner deal with me, and just being in the industry and figuring it out and knowing that I can do it. It projected me forward.
Yeah. And I can relate with that a lot too, because I did not grow up with money at all. Jeremy can attest to that. We grew up together, very poor. Did not grow up educated, did not go to college. I didn't even read a book until I think I was 19 or 20. But I had like a very strong, ambitious mindset, and that's what kind of pushed me through. And I was able to eventually build a little fortune in real estate. But you're right. You gotta have some of those.
Yeah.
But the education could come later.
And it can be free. It doesn't have to be crippling debt.
Yeah.
It can be. I mean, gosh, you go on YouTube and
Oh yeah.
you can learn how to do almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
YouTube University for the win. I love it.
Yep.
Exactly.
And so before we kind of went back into college, you talked about how you help other people raise money legally. Can we kind of dive into that for a minute, if that's okay?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, again, I do business with a lot of people trying to A, raise capital, or B, trying to do their deals more. Whether they're doing it legally or not is beyond my comprehension, to be honest. I'm not an SEC lawyer or SEC specialist like you. Just kind of give us a brief rundown of what legally raising money looks like, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would love to, because I think that is missed a lot. The biggest thing to remember is if you're taking money from investors that you expect to be passive, meaning they're just going to hang out, let you work, and then expect a return from your efforts, that's a security, and the Securities and Exchange Commission kind of cares what you're doing.
Okay.
And so you've got to do one of two things. Either you need to register that security, so think Microsoft, Facebook, IPOs, public offerings. That's usually not going to work in the real estate world, right? You don't have that kind of time, you don't have the kind of money to make that make sense. So you're not going to go public. So then you find an exemption. That's the other option. The exemption is where I live, right? And we talked about 506B a moment ago. It's called Reg D, which is under the SEC's regulations, and it's an exemption from registering a security. The two main ones are 506B and 506C. We don't need to get into the weeds of that unless you want me to, but the thing to remember is that when you are going to fall under one of these exemptions from registering, there's a certain level of risk disclosures, information you have to give to your investors, right? That's the biggest thing. That's where you get these huge offering documents that you see, the private placement memorandum, PPM.
Right.
You see these, like, people are like, oh my God, why do I have to have like 75 pages of scary stuff?
Right.
Because of the SEC. That's why. And clever lawyers that documents get longer and longer as lawyers get cuter and cuter with the rules.
Well, the longer the document is, the more money you make, because somebody you have to draft that, and that costs money, right?
Yeah, although we work on a flat fee, so we don't bill by the hour.
Okay,
so
flat fee over there. I love it.
Shorter too.
Yeah. But if somebody is doing a real estate deal, just one deal, and they have some friends or family or whoever that want to put money into it, you can create a joint venture agreement, but everybody needs to be active at some level. Can you describe or give examples of what would qualify as being an active investor?
Absolutely, and this is really important. It's not as scary as a lot of people think to raise capital under the securities rules, but if you really aren't ready yet, you don't want to, or you're maybe not raising enough that it makes sense to pay for all the compliance costs, a joint venture is what you're talking about. And a joint venture is where all the members they're partners in the business. They're actively involved, and that can mean that they all have a meaningful say, a vote on important decisions. Not I show up to a Zoom meeting and listen to what you're going to do on the property every month, right? That's not enough. But I have a vote and I have a say, like maybe I'm really good at asset management and I want to say in who the property manager is, or I want to talk about, what the construction budget should be, or something like that. But it doesn't mean everybody's an asset manager. Okay. It also doesn't mean that one person is really calling the shots and taking a fee for it. That if it starts to look like a syndication, it's going to probably get called a syndication by the SEC if they start poking around. The other thing to think about is if you have too many people, it's hard to say they're all really active. The rule I like to stick with is maybe don't have more than 6 or 8 joint venture partners, or it starts to look like a syndication.
Yeah, good point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so I want to say, I'm involved in a couple deals where I'm a passive investor right now. I'm not trying to get free legal advice here, but I want to know if this is legit. So
it's fine.
I'm invested in 2 parts. So I'm invested with my HELOC and I'm invested with my directed IRA into the same deal. It's actually, I'm invested into an RV park, specifically LLC. They said, hey, you give the money to the LLC, we'll give you a really good return. It was pretty simple with the paperwork, to be honest.
But you cannot be actively involved.
But I can't be
per your, Roth IRA.
Right. Definitely not involved in that. So,
right, yeah,
so how can you legally on one end you can't be legally involved, and then on the other end you have to be unless it's a registered security, right?
Right. So, I mean, what would have or should have happened there is you should have been given some level of risk disclosures about what you're getting yourself into to make sure that you're going in, eyes wide open. And I'm going to take a leap that you're an accredited investor. And so if the person who, no. Please don't say out loud who you invested with.
I didn't say anything. I don't know these people.
Told you he was a shady dude.
So the black van's going to show up at that person's house.
Sure. I guess the question is, like, me as an investor, because I came to them, I said, like, hey, I've got money to put into a deal. I think it's I thought it was a Reg A, if I wasn't mistaken.
Oh, well, okay.
I didn't. Okay.
What's the difference there? I'm trying to get the difference between Reg A, B, and C.
It's a whole different animal, right? And
okay.
so that's a little bit. So you can take non-accredited investors. You can take them from people that you've advertised to.
Yep.
It is very highly regulated. Reg A is almost like a mini public offering, right?
Okay.
The SEC is involved. They have to bless all the paperwork. So you would have seen some paperwork, though.
Sure. I mean, there was a promissory note and a deed of trust and all that stuff. I don't know if I read through all the minutia of the actual paperwork, unfortunately, but they advertise and it seems like they're doing it pretty legit. And I guess my question in this position is, like, would the investor be getting in trouble for that, or the person who sent out the deal get in trouble if there was any shenanigans happening?
If there were shenanigans, and frankly, if the deal went sideways and you decided you were like, I'm going to try to get my money back, then they would get in trouble, but not you.
Gotcha.
So the reality is they shouldn't have accepted your money without giving you all those risks.
Sure.
If they didn't.
Yeah. They're paying me, so I mean the money comes in every month. That's kind of cool.
Well, that's what I like to call the good deal defense. Is yes, he's probably never going to get tipped off as long as everyone's making money.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, just wanted to see kind of your opinion on that. Obviously, like we said, there's a ton of different ways to metaphorically skin this cat, of course. And I think, like, I've talked to Nick about this before too. Like, anytime you're doing stuff like this, you should get legal counsel, or you should get a legal opinion of sorts to see that everything makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's look, it's not cheap, but it's cheap insurance.
Right.
Sideways.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I agree.
Okay.
So is this what you do primarily?
It is, and I've kind of expanded out. So the law firm, I run the law firm, Premier Law Group, and I set that up so that I could help people create wealth by raising money, because it's scary for people.
Oh, yeah.
In addition to that, I set up a community called the Conscious Capital Collective just recently to support our clients. And so, Jeremy, actually, you probably already got an email about that. So we set that up to support our clients because there's so much stuff like this that comes up between deals that we charge on a flat fee, not hourly. And it's like, well, I don't want to nickel and dime people. I want them to come back to us.
Right.
I don't want to keep track of my time, quite frankly. Nobody wants to get a bill in the mail for for calling their lawyer. So we set it up with resources and Q&A with lawyers so we could support the client. So that's another thing that I'm doing is supporting that community, which I guess is largely consulting, right?
Sure.
And supporting the community. And then I'm actually also just fairly recently an active real estate investor, so I have a syndication
Okay.
as well.
Nice.
So I invest in resort properties.
Okay.
So when did you and how did you first start getting involved with, like, really known people in the real estate influencing world, like the Pace Morbys, AJ Osborne's? Like, how did you become known with them, and how did all that start, if you don't mind?
Yeah, it started to snowball. So actually, my former partner, Mauricio Raould, it was his firm. I met him in 2018. And really, actually, as I told you, I was just coming off that failure that we talked about earlier. And I met Mauricio, and he needed some help. He had some health issues that he ran into, and he was a solo practitioner at the time. And he was like, look, I need some help here. I can't be the single point of failure. So I had plenty of syndication and securities experience. I actually was new to real estate. I had done it on operating companies, but not real estate. Yeah. So I came to him, and I got to be honest, by the way, real estate's easier. So it was like, sure, I'll help.
I would imagine it would be, but I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's a lot easier, and the people are so much nicer. So I said, I'll help you, but I'm not staying here. This is not where I'm landing. I'm done. I'm done with the law. I'm done with whatever. And then I started to meet all the nice people, and I was like, well, wait, these people don't suck. I think I like this. So he was like, great, I want you to run the firm. And he already had a few high-profile clients. He already knew Brandon Turner, he was working with the real estate guys, and so we just started going to things together and kind of putting our faces out there. And referral led to a referral. Ryan Pineda has been amazing at sending referrals over. I think he's the one who sent us AJ Osborne.
Nice.
Okay.
Justin Waller, some of these bigger names. And then AJ sent us Tarek El Moussa. So it just snowballs. They all know each other, and they're like, hey, these guys did great work for us. You should call them. And so now we're sort of the go-to firm for a lot of those guys.
That's awesome. And you mentioned you're writing a book. It's almost out. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that. It's like all I talk about.
Okay,
I love it.
It's called The Power of OPE, Other People's Everything. And it's actually not a law book. It is a book about how to create wealth without burning yourself out by leveraging all the other brilliant people around you, but making sure that they are in fact brilliant. So,
well, that's fitting.
It's talking about being careful who's around you.
Yeah.
Because you absorb it, and but then leveraging them. So figuring out your lane, and then letting yourself stay in it. And when I talk about your lane, I'm talking about what are you amazing at, but also what lights you up. Because we're entrepreneurs. We're probably really good at a bunch of stuff we hate to do.
Yeah.
Right? Because you had to be at the beginning. And in the beginning, you do have to work. So I'm not saying, find other people and don't do anything.
Right.
You got to work hard. Just work hard at stuff that matters to you. So that comes out in February. It's done. We've got the cover art all picked out and all the things, and it'll go to formatting here in the next little bit. So that comes out in February.
That's awesome. How are you publishing that?
Game Changer Publishing. It was referred to me by an OP of mine, Tarek El Moussa. He used them to publish one of his books. And, excuse me, they've been wonderful to work with. Yeah.
Very cool. And I want to say, obviously, I'm looking forward to this book, first of all. Is it going to be on Amazon where you can get, hard copy or Kindle version type of thing?
Yeah, it'll be on everywhere you can buy books. Amazon is probably the most popular.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
And we'll definitely leave a link to Bethany's book and how to get a hold of that book in the show comments as well. So please look out for that. I do want to talk about that book though. So was this a passion project for you, or what actually prompted you to write this book?
I love to write. It's a catharsis for me, and so I've been writing a novel for literally 25 years. It's not done because I just like writing it. But it's one of those things. A novel is like, well, that's not propelling my work any further, and so I started to write this one of what's important to me, what's something that people ask me about a lot that's not law, because law's a little bit boring, let's be honest, right?
Sure.
I mean, there's some law peppered in there because I can't help it. It's just in my brain.
Yeah.
So there's some stuff in there. But I really like to write. It's a way I like to communicate, and I like to tell stories. And I thought this feels like something people would want to know about. Like, how can you get out of the grind? How can you just stop burning yourself out? And I also get really irritated when I see this hustle culture that everyone's kind of barfing at us all the time. It's like, yeah, you got to work hard and you got to hustle. And that's what I tell my daughter all the time. Like, you do have to hustle, you do.
Right.
But you shouldn't hustle at stuff that just doesn't move the needle towards whatever it is you want.
Yeah.
But then I was like, you go deeper. It's like, well, what do you want? Most people don't even really know.
Most people don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't.
No, that's a really good point for sure. I wouldn't say I'm part of the hustle culture, but I'm building a business I started last year and really am growing this year. So there is a lot of grind. I wouldn't call it hustle though. I'm learning how to get rid of the pieces that don't make sense, and so I can get more business, but I'm also trying not to just spin my wheels like you're talking about. So I think that's very important for people to acknowledge that you can hustle yourself into the ground, but that doesn't mean you're making progress. You actually have to do things that move the needle forward, correct?
Yeah, no, it just means you're tired.
Right.
So I used to be that person that would pride myself on, I'm the first one in, I'm the last one to leave. Look how hard I work. I'm busier than everybody else, and that's so boring.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to hear it. Nobody gives a shit. And I'm tired and grouchy about it. So they're like, maybe you should get some sleep and not be such a...
Maybe you should do the things that your body's telling you need.
Right, yeah. This whole, I only sleep 4 hours a night, and I don't eat, and I don't work out, or whatever.
Right.
Because all I do is work. It's not interesting to me to do that. But there was a time that I did do it, so I'm not saying you get to skip over hard work.
Yeah.
But I didn't give myself permission to work at just the stuff that I really enjoy doing and light me up. There's a story that I heard years ago, and it didn't really sink in until fairly recently, about Wayne Gretzky. Mm-hmm. Arguably, the greatest of all time hockey player.
You could argue that easily.
Yeah,
and
Michael Jordan of hockey.
Right, yeah. And so what I read about him was that he was known to kind of hold back and not just skate up and down the ice like some of the kind of young hot shots would do. He would hold back and he would kind of survey everything and figure out, and then he would hustle, get to where he needed to be, do his thing, and then dial back. And when he wasn't hustling to do it, he let his other people on the rink or whatever. What is it called? Is it a field? It's just the ice.
Ice rink, I think. Yeah.
On the ice.
We're hockey people, obviously.
Yeah.
Anyway, he let them do their thing.
Yeah.
He turned it on when he needed to. He dialed it back when he needed to, and so he had the energy. He wasn't killing himself, and he was effective when he needed to be.
Yeah.
But he just wasn't hustling to showboat and show everybody, look, I'm hustling all the time. And I think that's and he was still the greatest of all time. No one said, oh my God, he's so lazy. Look, he's just hanging out.
Yeah. No, it kind of reminds me of like Anderson Silva. He was like in his prime. He was kind of famous for, the first minute or so, he didn't really throw many punches, and he's just trying to feel it out and just kind of trying to really study his opponent in the ring. And then he would go to town as soon as he was ready.
Yeah. And when he did, he'd bring it. And it's like and that's what I want to do in my business. I want to, if I'm at the beach, I'm at the beach. If I'm with my daughter, I'm with my daughter.
Sure.
But when I turn it on, I'm getting shit done.
Yeah. It's important to know, like you said too, like turning it on and having a reason. Like your reason is not your business. Your reason is your reasons outside of your business. But you want to grow the business so that you can have that time with your family and your friends and everything like that. Do you have any advice for anybody maybe trying to go through that? Maybe that they're how to kind of get past that hump? Because honestly, as an entrepreneur, you have to go through that grind. There's a part where you're starting a business and you really have to just be pedal to the metal. What's it like to turn that off? Because obviously self-care is very important too.
Yeah, it is. Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head. My advice is first, figure out why you're doing all this. Because it's not to impress everybody else. Because if it is, you're going to be really disappointed when you get there.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
You get to the pinnacle and you hate the view, right? You're just like, this sucks. I didn't do this for myself. So figure out and give yourself permission to figure out what it is you really, really want. And, I don't know about you, but growing up poor, it was considered crass to say that I really wanted to make a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about the money, though. It was, I wanted the security and the freedom that I didn't have growing up. Like, I didn't want to have to worry about which thing I could buy or which bill I could pay or, that kind of thing. I wanted to provide more for my daughter. And so but that requires money. And I'm not afraid to say now, I want to make a lot of money. And I used to think I had to qualify that, like, I'll work hard and I'll do good things with the money. And again, no one gives a shit.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
If I'm not hurting people, right? If there are no bodies. So I think that's the first thing is daydream for a minute and use people around you, other people around you. I actually paid for a coach years ago. And that was the scariest thing I did because I'd never spent that much money on myself where I didn't know what the outcome was going to be.
Yeah.
Right? I would readily go get Botox because I'm like, I know what's going to happen there, But I was like, a coach, I don't know if this is going to work.
Right.
And I did it, and it was the best investment. And so I would say the best investment you can ever make is in yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't feel comfortable doing those things, get a coach to do it with you, and then but figure it out, daydream, figure out like what's my dream life look like. And it might feel silly at first, or it might feel not productive.
Yeah.
Right. But it is one of the most productive exercises I've ever done.
Did that coach kind of help you figure out what you wanted?
She helped me unlock what I already knew I wanted and didn't want to admit or think I deserved.
Okay.
It was more that
she just helped you find it in your head somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, and it's one of those things that we kind of all know what we want. It's like, am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to want this?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we'd have to dig too deep to figure out what it is. It's, can we have it?
Right. There's a little secret there too. I think you need to give yourself permission to succeed. Honestly, because you get stuck in the minutia of this whole thing, and you need to say to yourself, like, okay, I want this, I deserve this, I work hard at it, I'm going to get it. Right? And if you have that mindset going in, like I honestly think you'll become unstoppable.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Starting new habits.
Exactly. And I think the habits are so much easier when you have that reason, your why is what people always say, your why. When you have that, like I am doing a lot of what I do, and I know it might sound trite, for my daughter, right? But it's not so that she's like, oh my gosh, look at my mom, she's so cool.
Yeah.
I love if she does that. If she does that, that's great.
That'd be
Although
great. That's what we all want as parents too.
Not very often because she's so cute. But I do it because I want her to look at me and go, well, that's just what women do.
Mm-hmm.
They decide what they're going to do and they build it, because I didn't grow up thinking and it's not just women, but I think actually being poor was more impactful than being a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Then, and so I just wanted to though think I can just do whatever I want. That's what she does. She figured it out. She did it, and you can shift gears. You can change course if you want to too.
Right.
And that's okay.
And I guess like being poor, it definitely starts with the mindset too. Nick and I we didn't live in poverty, but we lived in not riches for sure.
Yeah.
Just grew up white trash.
We just grew up North Idaho white trash, basically.
Yeah.
But Nick was actually the one that introduced me to the concept of wealth. Like before I started in real estate, I was just working at a counter doing rental car services, and I was very happy with my life. I was content. My bills were paid. I was renting a room with my brother, and it was great. But then there's a way above that, and like if you just elevate yourself and elevate your mind, again, I think the possibilities are limitless when you get there.
I agree. That's one of my favorite words, limitless.
Limitless. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So, out of all the mega influencers that you've worked with, can you tell us who's your favorite?
Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble or canceled.
Well, I'm not asking who do you hate the most.
No.
We'll skip that one because I want to so bad.
You want to know? So okay, this is a good question. I think, and they all have different attributes that I really adore. And so I'm trying to think of what's sort of the current. I'm gonna say, God, I don't know, I'm getting in trouble. I think I'm gonna say Brandon Turner.
Okay.
It's a solid choice. It's Brandon Turner.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why though. So I'm not just sucking up to Brandon, and he probably won't even see this.
Yeah. He doesn't watch this.
I don't know. Maybe you guys.
When we see him at Planet Fitness,
you have a broader reach to me. By the way, I don't even think Brandon follows me.
Yeah, he goes to our gym in Coeur d'Alene, which is kind of cool.
Okay, so actually, I think I've been to that gym. We did our photo shoot there.
Was it Planet Fitness?
Oh no,
that's where he's at now. Don't let me tell everyone else that apparently.
We did it at like this CrossFit gym. We did our photos there.
Okay.
This challenge that we did together. I'll tell you what I love though about him is one is he's all about building community.
Mm-hmm.
Two is he's scrappy. Like he does the work. But he has an amazing team around him, and he only does his work.
Yeah.
And he's not in their business. Like I actually don't deal with we deal with his team. I don't deal with Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with Brandon on very limited occasions when it required Brandon or when we did the fitness challenge or whatever, but I deal with his team, and he lets them run the thing because they're good at it.
That's awesome.
And I like that about him. He trusts his team. They do a good job. And he has the mindset that I can still create the wealth I want to create by being compliant and safe and being a good steward of my investors' money. He wants to be compliant. He's not asking me, how can I bump up against the rules? How can I get around it? How can I skirt through? He knows that I set up guardrails for him. He knows he can be successful staying within those guardrails, and I love that about him. That is the mindset of a winner.
Yeah,
right there.
Nice.
He's just such a genuine dude too. Like, not to suck up to him, but I've met him a few times, and he's just super nice and just super chill. Like we're nobodies in the investing world, and he talked to me like I was just like the most important person in the room when we talked to him, and that was really cool.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I love about him is he gave us all permission, and I'm going to say this so everyone can hear. When we were in Coeur d'Alene at that retreat, he told us all about how he gets a massage once a week, and that's where he comes up with his $1 million ideas.
Nice.
And it's not, he doesn't go to shut down. It's like his meditation. He goes to think of ideas, and I'm like, ooh, a massage once a week, I'm in.
Yeah, right.
And he brings a pen and pad with him, and he'll have him stop when he has an idea, right? and jot it down.
He probably said that.
That's what I remember him. He said it at another podcast. I remember that.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just love that. I'm like, but he also doesn't say everybody can just do that all the time. He still knows when to hustle.
Yeah. What's important to know about it, obviously, if Brandon's your favorite, we respect that, of course. But now to all your other clients listening, they have a bar that they can set to, right? So now they have to try to be even better and cooler for you, so you can they can be number one on your list. Okay.
Yeah, and I hate that because we're gonna end this and be like, oh, I should have said something.
No, yeah.
Well, so who would you say is the most fun? out of all those people?
Ashley Wilson.
Ashley Wilson?
Ashley Wilson, Bar Down Investments, Ashley Wilson.
Okay.
And her partner, Jay Scott. I adore them. I adore them. And I would, now that I'm saying that, I'm like, God, are they my favorite? It's like how you have to say out loud, like, which of your kids you love.
Right, yeah.
I only had one kid, you guys. I don't have to do that.
So she's your favorite by default then, right?
Right. She's my favorite human, but I don't have to pick.
Yeah.
Jay Scott and Ashley Wilson.
Yeah, Jay Scott is who she invests with. I remember that. So.
And they are phenomenal human beings. And also, I have to tell you, Tarek El Moussa. He's really close up there with Brandon Turner.
Okay.
In that he's such a love. He really cares about being compliant and safe. And so I'd have to say he's up there as well.
Cool.
That's great.
So if somebody wants to be, I guess, get in touch with you about your services for being compliant or, setting up a legal system, how would they go about doing that?
So we have a website, and my favorite way, I'm gonna totally plug my Instagram.
Absolutely.
Because you can get everything that you need on my Instagram, which is Bethany_LaFlam on Instagram. So there's a link to my law firm website. There's a link to the Conscious Capital Collective community that we built. There's a link to my book. Everything you want to know is on Instagram.
Okay, easy peasy. That's great. And before we kind of start getting to the wind down, I want to talk about obviously how you kind of switched roles a little bit later in life, like you said when we first talked. What has that process been like for you? Because it seems like you've done a lot with your life, and you just continue doing more cool things, and you find the right thing that makes sense for you. What's that feeling like to maybe stop doing something that's working and go on a new adventure or follow your passion?
I think you're setting me up for something, and I'm gonna deliver. So, it's freeing, is what it is. I actually developed this tool with one of my coaches and for the book called my Abso-fucking-lutely Analyzer, and I really do use it. And I put opportunities through this analyzer. It's kind of like a deal analyzer, right? Like, here's my buy box or whatever. It's like my buy box. And what the factors are is basically, does this opportunity get me closer to what I envision my dream life to be? Or does it keep me on track? Because I think I'm on track there.
Right.
Does it keep me on track towards that? Or does it take me away from it? And there are a number of factors, and you can find that, by the way, on my Instagram. You can actually, if you DM me the word fuck, you'll get a download.
I love it.
So, I might get canceled for 5 reasons.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I really do use it, though, because does it fit my moral and ethical code? Does it get me closer to my dream life? Is it going to be easier or harder than it should be? Do I have other people that can help me get there?
Yeah. All
those things are factors within it, and that is how I can learn. I have to let this thing go. I don't want to keep chasing something. A mistake, for example. What's the saying? Don't keep chasing a mistake because you spent a long time making it.
Right.
So I know when to cut ties with whatever it was I was doing and move on to the next thing. Yeah. Just based on that analyzer, actually. Yeah.
I've got a deal analyzer on my website. I've had it up for maybe 10 years or so. I'm thinking about changing the name of it now just to make it more interesting for people can download it. Yeah, that's it was a great idea. Great idea.
Thank you.
So is that mostly, are they analyzing commercial real estate projects, or is it like, can it be anything really?
It's so general. It's really any opportunity. It could be engaging in a relationship with a person. It could be any opportunity. It's really just, does this fit with the plan I have for my life?
Okay. Got it.
And it should meet more than not. There are going to be a couple of deal breakers in there. Like, if it doesn't meet these, I can't do it. It could be like, all right, it meets most of them, so we're going to give it a go.
Okay. So is it more of a questionnaire than like a spreadsheet?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like a check the box kind of thing.
Very nice.
And as entrepreneurs, it's a lot of us have that shiny object syndrome. Like,
we do.
That looks fun. Let's try that.
It's so hard staying in one business that's making sense.
If that thing, you can get other people to help run it. The law firm. I run the law firm, but I've now hired other people to help do most of the heavy lifting,
Yeah.
so that I can help scale it and grow it and build these other things that still support the law firm but don't require my full time. Next year, actually, I will be considered a real estate professional.
Nice.
I'll be more in my boutique hotel and resort business than I will in the law firm.
Nice.
IRS.
That'll help for taxes.
I have a question for you guys, if I could.
Yeah.
I watched earlier episodes, and it seems like this like Technicolor drink that you guys have is a staple. What is that?
Cheerio.
This is just pre-workout.
It's basically our caffeine for the day while we do our podcast.
Okay,
so
right. You should get sponsored by them.
we're honored
Yeah.
you actually watched our podcast. And yes, we do have a blue drink on every time, or we have a nose strip for some episodes too.
Jeremy and I used to be highly addicted to energy drinks, and he gave it up a year ago.
I
So
did.
I've been at least getting him to drink something with caffeine,
Right.
and this is all I can get him to drink.
I'm a coffee. I'm the coffee.
Yeah. Coffee's it for me. I can't do energy drinks anymore. But I mean, look, this
You
is
do
our
coffee
energy
and
right here.
everything,
We're
all
rocking.
caffeined up.
I love it.
Bethany, I want to talk about, you kind of mentioned real quick earlier, you mentioned your dream life. Can you tell everyone listening what your dream life looks like? Just curious.
I sure can, because it's at the top of my org chart that I built for myself.
Perfect.
My dream life is I retire by traveling around to beautiful properties around the world that I own a piece of in a syndication, in a fund, and I host retreats to help other people create wealth in a way that doesn't kill them and make them miserable and hate their life. That is my dream life. So
That is a good
I
life.
travel the world, I own the properties, and it's all a big community.
Yeah.
So how many years until you get there, you think?
Next year.
Oh, I love it.
I'm not really retiring, though. It's not real retirement. My daughter graduates high school. She's a senior.
Okay.
And so she graduates high school. So I just need to get my dog certified to be able to travel with me,
There you go.
or buy a jet.
Yeah.
That's an easy website to go to.
Yeah, one of those things, so my dog can come with me.
Yeah.
And I bought a property in Belize. I'm looking at a ranch here in Southern California as sort of the home base.
Nice.
And we'll buy, a castle in Scotland, something in Tuscany, France. I don't know where yet. But that fund will launch early next year.
So would these properties be like short-term rentals, and then you'll just be able to book 1 week a year or something like that, and try to
We're gonna
get 50 properties?
it more like a boutique hotel, bed and breakfast kind of thing than a short-term rental.
Nice.
So we'll operate them like that, and the goal ultimately will be that the membership community that I'm building, it's one of the highest tiers of membership. So these properties are really for the top level members. Like,
Ooh.
do you know Club 33, Disney's big secret, whatever? So it's like
Heard
that. You
it.
pay a membership fee, and then you still pay to go to all the Club 33 stuff, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. But that our members, sort of at the base level that are still trying to grow their wealth, can still get invited to our events that we have at these amazing properties. So I just want to create amazing experiences for people and give them a taste. This is what I'm doing for my daughter. A lot of people say I'm spoiling her, and it's true, I am. But the reason, though, is that I want her to get accustomed to a certain lifestyle that she will not accept less than.
That's a good point.
She's going to have to hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is this a mastermind group that you have?
So I have the Conscious Capital Collective, which is actually just it's an online community.
Okay.
And there'll be things that kind of pop out of that. There's a couple of programs that I'm doing that you'll see next year, but it's really it's a collective where you can go in and you can download resources if you want to raise money. You can network with the other members. There's a book club in there. You can go see what the members are reading. And it's a really cool community.
Okay.
I'll send you the link.
How long ago did you launch that?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. No way. Really?
It's actually a soft launch. We haven't even done the hard launch. The hard launch happens January 20th, when the app is done.
Okay.
I've never
Well,
had
by
my
the
own
time
app
this
before,
episode
so-
comes out, it'll be launched. This episode will come out in mid-February, I believe.
Right about your book.
About the time your
All
book's.
right, so the book will be out, just coming out, and then everybody can already go in and join the community as well.
Awesome.
Are you going to do any signed books, or do we have to hunt you down at one of the events to have you sign our books?
I can sign books, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm gonna I'll be doing that at every event I speak at now, right?
Now I just have to bring one more book to an event because I'm always like, here's all the books from all the people. I gotta have them sign it. So
I'll bring
backpack.
some. Whenever I go to an event, I'll bring some.
okay, perfect. I want to ask before we kind of get into the wind down questions. I have another question that I just kind of popped in my head. If somebody was starting with zero, like absolutely nothing, no wealth, no prosperity, no businesses, how would you recommend them get out of the A rat race and be into a comfortable life?
I think the first thing would be, one, figure out a thing that lights you up, right? And then go figure out how that solves a problem for other people who have money. And it could be a number of things. I mean, obviously I have the ability to communicate with people in a way that makes them feel comfortable at scary things. So law school actually did make sense for me.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be something expensive like law school. If you can figure out how something that you're amazing at and lights you up solves a rich person's problems, that's probably the best way to start.
That's really good advice.
The other thing you can do is, if you have time and not money, then you need to give your time to someone with money and learn under them. Find somebody who's doing what you want to do and learn all you can and give your time to them.
That's a really good answer.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like advice from Alex from Rosie. Almost.
You know what? I could have heard it from Alex Ramosi. Did you follow him?
It's like the rule of 33 on the internet. Like, if you think of something, it's probably already been done to some extent. But I mean, it doesn't need to be.
Solve a problem for a rich person, get it done, and it doesn't matter if it's double the price. But if it's half the time,
Right.
Right.
yeah.
That's well, and you think about that, and all the rich people you know, and the stuff that they'll pay for.
Right.
I'm almost embarrassed to tell you how often I have Starbucks delivered to my house.
Yeah, that's a luxury. What's your go-to Starbucks drink?
Oh, I just like a breve latte with an extra shot.
Nice. Okay.
Okay. I don't know what breve is.
Yeah, we don't. Nope.
Half and half. It's half and half. It doesn't have as much sugar, and it's
yeah.
it's got protein. And then I put protein powder in my coffee.
There you go.
Oh,
after I go to the gym, after I go to the gym, this is my life hack. I go and I get a Wendy's Frosty, and then I put protein powder in that, and that's my treat for going to the gym.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay.
Small Frosty, half a cup of protein powder. Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay. It's like $2.50.
Whatever it takes to keep going.
And that's my treat, like, because the gym is right next to Wendy's, so it's like if I go to the gym and I bust my ass for an hour and a half, like this is my reward.
This is your reward to screw up everything you just did.
I didn't screw up everything. Cardio schmardio, okay, I'm bulking.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm bulking, I need the calories.
Okay.
Yeah, the cardio is not my favorite.
Yeah. So Bethany, I do want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day and joining us on the Investor Shed podcast. I just have a couple extra questions that we usually wind down the shows with for you at the end of our shows, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
First question is, if you were gifted $30 million to one of your bank accounts, what's the first thing you would spend it on?
Real estate. I would invest in one of my resort properties.
Easy peasy.
Okay. Yeah. So no tech startups.
No.
Not Bitcoin?
Not Bitcoin.
You know, it's interesting.
I'd buy either that, or I'd buy part of a jet.
Yeah. Part of a jet.
So you mentioned earlier in the show that it was kind of hard. You were working with mostly tech companies when you were selling securities, right? Or not selling securities, but like helping with the compliance of that. So is it because like a lot of those companies went bust? Is that why it was tough? Or is that
you were run by assholes?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm just curious if like real estate was more a reliable source of income for investors.
Okay, so
that's what makes it easier.
I think that real estate is a more reliable source of income and a better investment for people who don't already have a whole bunch of trust fund money.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
You get a bigger potential win in tech, 10x, whatever.
Sure.
Or nothing, though.
Or nothing at all. Right.
So it's like a big gamble. In real estate, it's sort of slow and steady wins the race kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I think real estate's sort of one of those great equalizers that you don't already have to be rich to get into it.
Yeah. It's really hard to go completely to zero with real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So
You kind of got to try.
We got to figure out a way to go to zero.
Yeah. We want to be net zero on paper. That's all we want to be, right?
A really interesting reality show of like, okay, if you had to just tank everything to zero, what would you do?
Right. How would you dismantle what you built? Easy peasy. I can do that in a minute. Next question for you, Bethany, is, if there's been one business or real estate book that's mentored you or done the most good in your life, what is that book?
Who Not How.
Who Not How? Dan Sullivan, right?
Dan Sullivan. Yeah, Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan.
Okay.
Was the biggest game changer. And it's not rocket science. It's probably been said 25 different ways, but the time that I read it was when I needed to hear it.
Sure.
And it's sort of that gives you permission to leverage other people. And I'll tell you, I was actually already halfway done with my book, and I read it, and I was like, yes,
That's
I'm on
what
the
you
right
need.
track.
Yep.
I got to read that one. Too many people are recommending it.
Too many.
That
That means you need to read it. Yes.
You know, and I think Dr. Benjamin Hardy reads it too, and then he interviews Dan.
Okay.
I consume all my books on Audible, and he reads it, and he interviews Dan Sullivan and some bonuses if you listen to it on Audible.
Do you count listening to a book as reading a book?
I do.
Me too.
Of
Okay,
course.
good.
It's better comprehension.
Some people tell me they're like, when you listen, you're not reading. I'm like, that you're right. I'm not reading it, but I'm absorbing. Yes.
This is why I say I consume all my content
Yeah.
or all my books because if I lay down, I will go to sleep.
Right.
Like I just I like to have, but I buy the physical book in case I want to make notes or or whatever. So I like to have the physical book.
Yeah, good point.
I love that. Next question for you is, how do you define success?
Oh, I define success in doing whatever the fuck you want with whomever you want, where you want, when you want. It's having the freedom to choose what you do and with whom you do it from anywhere you want to be.
Okay.
You rehearsed that, didn't you?
Well, it's I've been asked before,
It seems like it's part of her motto. Yeah.
No, that was good.
To me. Yeah, absolutely. But yes, I have.
Yeah, I love that. Next question is, when you're not being, a badass SEC attorney, hanging with your daughter, or building businesses, what do you like to do with your free time?
I do actually really like to write.
Okay.
So I write in my free time, and lately, over the past year or so, I lift weights.
Nice.
That's sort of my that's my self-care.
Yeah.
Is lifting weights. It's amazing how much aggression that can get out and how calming that can be.
Yeah, good point. That's a great habit to get into.
Yeah.
I told my wife the other day, I'm like, did you know you can just go to the gym and scream and nobody will stop you? I can just
They might
scream for
ask
10
to
minutes
leave.
on the treadmill and nobody's going to be like, he's being loud. I can just yell and scream on the treadmill.
Everyone's got headphones on; they can't hear you.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Next.
Somebody's probably recording you.
Right. Next question is, I know you kind of alluded to it earlier as well, but where can people find out more about you and get in touch with you for, again, any of your SEC investments?
Instagram.
I know
She
they said it, but I
Instagram.
want her to re-plug it.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
do. So Instagram is my favorite medium for that, Bethany_LaFlam. I really do want everyone to go check out the Conscious Capital Collective, which C-Cubed, if you don't want to say that whole mouthful.
Okay.
C-Cubed, and you can get there by linking in my Instagram.
Okay, perfect. So Instagram's going to be the place to go for that.
Yeah.
Nick, any final closing thoughts?
I really got to get on this Instagram train.
Yeah, you do.
I don't know
He
how
doesn't.
to
Nick
get on
doesn't Instagram, so.
I've accessed it from my desktop a few times, and people laugh at me.
Can you do that?
Yeah, you can. He did it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Awesome.
All right.
Well, hey, thank you
you.
so much, Bethany LaFlam, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. When's the next time you're coming up to Coeur d'Alene?
Ooh, gosh, I could never get there enough. I don't have a trip in the book, so maybe we should just plan something.
Yeah. I mean, next
We'll
time
invite
you're here, next time you're here, we'll make sure you get an invite to come hang out with us for sure. So,
And I'd rather do it when it's warm.
when it's warm, yeah, most people
Yeah,
would. So,
it sucks this time of year.
I like the
rainy and
warm
cold.
weather.
well, awesome. Hey, thank you so much again, Bethany. We really, really appreciate your time, and thank you for listening to the Investor Shed podcast. We appreciate you as well, and we will see you on next week's episode of the Investor Shed podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks a bunch.
Next week we've got Brandon Beveridge. My brother's going to be here, so stay tuned for that. Later.